the two projects that I have prepared here is the Dublin data that you have seen before, and the other data where I have some material where I would like to demo as well. Okay, so for starters, I will start by how you actually enter Open Cities Planner. All you need is to go directly to the website and add your credentials and then log in. If you don't have an account already, you would have to go register and then log in after that. So first stop would be that you would have to have an instance. So what the thing that was blocked, I couldn't access. As you can see, I have a lot of instance from all of our clients. Usually the clients just have one instance. So we already have an instance for you. So once everything is set up, we can add you to an instance, and once you have access to that, you can start creating a project. So the procedure to start with Open Cities Planner would be to create an account, and then with that account to log in to the instance that you are provided access to, and then enter and start creating. I will start by explaining two different versions of Open Cities Planner. The first one is the editor. So this is where you would actually create the project. And the second one is the published view. So I'll just go and show you what it looks like once the project is published. So the only difference here is that you don't have the top and the sidebar that has all the options. But what you have inside of those top and sidebars is the way that your project will actually look at the end. So everything from here, this square, is what your project will look like. So I'll start with just explaining some tools, what these ribbons mean and what you can do with them. So the first one, as I mentioned, was the name of the instance. As I said, you will probably only have one, so it's not important for you to know that you can jump to more instances. You can have instance settings. So basically, for me I should first explain what an instance is. It's basically your organization. So that's a place where you will store all of your projects. You might have 50 projects, they all end up into this instance or organizations, as we used to call it before. You can edit the name of or the setting of the instance here. You can create a new instance in case you want to split it for a particular reason. You have user management here, which is important. We'll get back to that. And then some status on how many gigabytes you have used, etc. After that, you have the name of the project here. Usually when you will first start with Open Cities Planner, you will start by, I can log in here so I can show you. You will start by creating a completely new project. Well, until this loads. So just by hitting here, and you can open a completely new project. Right now this is untitled, so we can give it a name. And then you can save that. So what we have created is a new project that is completely empty, but we'll start filling it with content. If you want to access all the projects that you are a part of, there is a project manager, so a folder where all your projects are saved. Right now I created this one, and there are two more here. There are more projects here in the instance projects, and this is where maybe I should explain this first. If we go back to user management, we'll talk about the types of users which you may be familiar with from sales aspects, that we have different users. We have team users, we have creator users, and the new user pack that will come is exhibitor user. So what's the difference between these users? The creator is basically a person that can edit any project. A creator with admin rights is the same thing, but that person that has admin rights on an instance level is a person that can access all the projects. So let's say, for instance, I create a project, but I don't invite someone else to my project. Then somebody else who is also a creator cannot see my project. But only a creator with admin rights can see everybody's project. So whoever is on the instance working and has their own projects, they will be visible for the person that has admin rights. For the person that does not have admin rights, they can only see their own projects. So that's the difference between one and the two. The person with admin rights also can access Data Manager. Otherwise, it is frozen or unable to reach for the creator. And that person also has the right to create and delete projects that inside of the instance. So if I am not the creator of a project and I have admin rights, I can still delete the projects. Another type of user is a team user. So these are basically like viewing users that you invite to a project, but they have no access, no editing privileges to that project. So you basically invite people as team users only to view the project before it's actually published. So you don't always have to publish your project, because once you publish it, it has a URL link and everybody who has internet can see your progress. But in case you want to invite someone to see your project without any editing capabilities, then you would invite them as a team user. In that sense, they would have to log in and then access the project that I want to view. So why I explained this is in Project Manager, where you have your project. So I created this one. I also can go to instance projects and see all the projects that are ongoing on the instance level. Right now, there aren't any more than these three, which I am a part of, so there's not much to look at. But there are other instances that I am a part of where once I go to instance projects, I see that Yuan or some other colleague has created some other projects that I can also view only if I have admin rights. So this is basically where you would then access all of your projects that you have created on the instance. You have the save button, that's pretty self-explanatory, and then save as. We'll get back to save as template. This is very important. Team. So there are two levels of teams in OpenCities Planner. The first level would be through user management. So the first way of adding users would be through user management. You would add users here. And after that, you can add users to your project specifically. So on the first step, you invite them to the instance. On the second step, you invite them to the project. So let's say the instance has 5 users. I only want to work on this project with Yuan. So I only add Yuan to this project, and then we create the project together. So that is what team member this team settings are for. You can also invite team viewers to the project. So these are the viewers that cannot edit anything. You also do this via this button. So these buttons may mean publish and publish as a 360 panorama. We'll get to that as well. We have some export tools that are very useful, and sun study and elevation renderings that we'll cover later as well. A very important thing is to mention the help section. So when you click on help here, it will open a side panel. So right now we have written this attention about the performance issues that we have. But aside from that, there are a lot of documentation that could be helpful for new users. One of them is, for instance, tutorials, where you have a step-by-step guide to basically all the features in OpenCities Planner explained very thoroughly. So if you want to check that out, you can do that as well. Or let's say you have a question about any of the tools that we have, but you can't seem to find it in the documentation. You can, of course, just use search here and search for, I don't know, viewpoints. And then this will lead to everything that we had written on that subject. So you can explore more on each tool by the help section. Another thing that is important to mention on the lower part, there's support and feedback. So in case you have some issues or errors or questions or anything that you want to send to us, you can write a ticket here, and then we get that through our support system, and then we can fix or answer or help you out with any questions that you might have. On the side panel here, we have user settings. This one is pretty basic. If you want to add your user information, this is just information for you, does not affect anything. If you want to change your password or log out, this is where you would do it. And now we have some tools that first I would have to add some content for us to see what they can do. So I would suggest we start with adding content. The first step that we would usually do, we have already skipped in a way, and that is to create a background that we are going to use in our projects. For creating backgrounds, we would go to Data Manager. I'm just gonna enter here shortly just so that you see that this is basically another tool inside of OpenCities Planner, and it's a very new, recent tool that we developed, and the purpose of it is to create backgrounds that you can use for your projects. We support various things here. If you go to help here again, you will see all the documentation on the backgrounds that you can create. There's even a file that is data types that explains all the data types that we support in Data Manager. So what kind of data would you want to create as a background? You can check if we support that here. So since we already created this background, I think it's okay that we skip this. We can have another meeting if you want a specific Data Manager tutorials as well. But for now, I think it's okay if we just act as if it was magically created. So once we are done with Data Manager and we have created a background there, whatever ends up on the last page of that Data Manager, which is called Map Dataset, is actually linked to Map Datasets in the editor. So whatever you create in Data Manager will end up in the editor. So I have created 2 backgrounds, and the one that I will need is the second one here. And just by clicking on it here, it will load. So first we will have some settings that I can explain later, but it is for now not necessary. So what we have here is actually a Bing map. So this is a Bing map that is given to you by default in Data Manager. You can always get a Bing map and then use that to kind of overlap it with any other data you might have. So we have a reality mesh model as well on top of the Bing map, and then the Bing map is basically kind of patches the outskirts so that once you zoom out of the reality mesh model that you have, you don't see just a gray background, but you see some content around. It is here for giving more content and for the project to look better. So let me open where, actually, I'll just quickly delete this one and open another one. Another type of data that you can import. So the first one that we imported was map datasets. This was directly taken from Data Manager. But once I open this and then let's say I add a viewpoint or edit some settings and I want to save them, I can go here and use Save as Template. What happens now is that I've saved basically a background that I can use multiple times. So if you go here to templates, you will have some basic templates by default. So one of the basic templates is again just a Bing map of the entire world. So if you don't have any material, you can of course always start by this, just by clicking on some of these default maps and then dragging your models on top of it. Or if you already have your own map, then you can just drag that, which I created previously. I created that from that map data set. I just added some settings, added a viewpoint, and then saved that as a template. And now when I go to templates, I have that open here. So what this window does is it asks me what kind of data do you want to take from the template? Do you want to take the viewpoints, the project info, the groups and layers, backgrounds, interface, dialogue, etc. And which coordinate system do you want it to be in? Should it be in the coordinate system that is currently accurate here, or do you want it in the coordinate system of that template, of that background? And this is what I would choose because the current coordinate system is not my local coordinate system, and it would not work with models that I would upload in the interface. So I would choose template here. and click import. And as you might notice, it says that you can choose viewpoints, so you can choose backgrounds, layers. So what templates does actually is that you can create a pretty polished project with all the information necessary, and then you can save that as a template and use that as literally as a template for multiple projects that you can work on. So this is not only just for saving a background, this is literally for saving a template that has a preset viewpoints, a preset I don't know, logos or colors or whatever you did to customize the interface. So I'm just going to delete the background from before, and this layer that was created from the first one. So right now, as you can see here, I already have my viewpoints added from before. If you have any questions, whenever, just jump in. If some part is still vague, just feel free to ask.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, so right now what we have done is we have entered or added a background that we had prepared from before and then loaded it into our new project. So for the first step, we can save the project just so we don't lose any data. And let's see what we have for now. We have some viewpoints. I would like to restart that and recreate them. So if I go here to viewpoints, I already see that I have some preset viewpoints. And if I click on them and click visit, it will lead me to that viewpoint. Or I could have just clicked on these buttons here, because this is what they're for. But I can also delete them and just create new ones. So if I go from, let's keep the start one. And let's say I just want to maybe zoom in to the building that we will import later here. So this building, and then I will give it a name. And just so you give a name and hit plus, and just like that, you have a viewpoint created. So if I go to start again, this is the default view, and then the building detail will be here. If I click on it, I can edit it. I can make it my home view. This means that once I reload the project or when I launch it here for the public view, it will be the first view that will be activated. I can visit it or I can reset it. Let's say I'm not completely satisfied with how it looks. I can hit set here and it basically rewrites the view again. So this is all you have to know about viewpoints. It's pretty basic, I think. The second thing that you would like to do is to probably add your own 3D model. So I had the models from before. We received the models as, I think it was 3ds Max and FBX files. So my workflow with that was that I had to export those files into something that OpenCities Planner supports. And if you go to 3D models here and click upload, you will see what kind of data we support. So it's KMZ and Collada or DIA files. This is basically what this means. It's both of these files are just a regular 3D model that have a coordinate system baked inside of them. And so it depends on what kind of program you use when you create your 3D models, but they should always be exported into these two formats if you want to upload it into OpenCities Planner interface. We are working on some other types of importing, so soon we will have an integration with iModel Hub. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but that basically means that we will connect to iModel Hub that has support for Revit files, Autodesk files, etc. So hopefully soon you won't have to export all of the files into these two formats, but just connect to iModel Hub. But in the meantime, you should know that this is the procedure to entering your files, your 3D models inside OpenCities Planner. So what I did here, I'm not an expert on 3ds Max, so it took me a while before I figured out which export settings to use, because 3ds Max has an Collada export, but there are like billions of settings inside of that you have to fine tune in order to get all the textures correct. So I don't know which kind of program do you use. Is there anything specific? Do you maybe use SketchUp or Revit or MicroStation?
We use Revit mostly ourselves, with a small amount of SketchUp, so I'm familiar with those models.
Okay, but you do have a license for SketchUp, because SketchUp has been so far the program that we supported the most. The thing is that each export from each program inscribes some coding that is always different, and when we upload our models into OpenCities Planner, that coding can kind of make the model act a bit differently depending on the program that we exported from. So my workflow has always been 100% accurate was going through SketchUp. So I would recommend to everybody, if they want to just have a safe workflow, to export it as a SketchUp model first and then edit it in SketchUp, maybe delete some content that is unnecessary, and even georeference it in SketchUp and then export it to Collada or KMZ, because SketchUp supports both files, and then import it to OpenCities Planner. So if you have a license for SketchUp, I would definitely recommend that workflow, because having combined all the other programs, I have seen that this was the easiest way to upload the models.
Veronica, do you know what the DCC guys use?
Well, in DCC now they're moving to Autodesk, so it would be more Revit.
So
but I don't know if they do any SketchUp at the moment. Not sure.
I honestly haven't worked with Revit yet, so I don't even know what the workflow with Revit would be. I don't know if Revit has a Collada export. I'm guessing it might have, because most programs have it, but KMZ probably not, but Collada is still okay. So anyway, these workflows have to be kind of tested by the users until they find the best export that works for them. But again, I would always recommend to go through SketchUp, because that always never backfires. So what I did here was my safe workflow was to take it from 3ds Max. I had to use Blender because I was not familiar with 3ds Max, and then from Blender export it to SketchUp, and then in SketchUp kind of finalize everything. What I did then was I exported it as a Collada file. And then what happens when you export a Collada file, you get a Collada die file, and you get a folder. And inside of that folder are all the materials that are inside of that file. What you have to do for it to work inside OpenCities Planner, you have to grab both of these files, and then you have to zip them. So just, yeah, I suppose you all have some kind of zipping program. So what I did that from before. So I have this 3D model already zipped. And what I do is I just drag and drop it here in the interface. And now it's uploading here. So I had to just go to 3D model upload. I could have just clicked here and then searched for where my file is and click open, or just by regular drag and dropping into the interface, that works as well. So right now it's uploading here. You can see the progress, and once it's uploaded, it will appear in the interface. I didn't have time to georeference the model, unfortunately, but I usually do that in SketchUp as well. But I figured this is maybe okay as well, so that I can show you what happens in case a model is not georeferenced and you cannot find it in the interface. So this workflow will be helpful as well. We can go through how to georeference a file also. That can be kind of a separate tutorial as well, because I can only show you through SketchUp, because that's the workflow I'm most familiar with. So if you want, we can have a separate conversation about that. So while this is uploading, I can just cancel this and it will upload in the background. But there's another thing we have here for 3D models. It's the 3D library. So this is basically if you want to just test some basic volumes, you can just drag and drop the volume into the interface. and you can drag it around once it appears. You can also extrude it depending on the size. You can also add values if you don't want to extrude it manually. You can change the size proportionally, or you can rotate the model. So everything I'm doing here with the model is something you can do with every model that you import. So in case you have you want to do some quick basic volume studies, you don't even have to use a different program. You can just grab one of our objects from the library and then work with those as well. You can change the height of the model as well.
Sorry, Emma, I just missed. Did you get the block from the? Did you click 3D model and then go into the library?
I went here 3D model and then I went to 3D library.
Okay, perfect.
So you have more. We have trees as well, super small trees that are scalable. So yeah, basically you are of course free to check the library or even add models to your library. So each one of these models can be added to your library if you want to create use them by default inside of your instance for different projects. Another so an important part of OCP are these two tools. So right now, after adding these objects, if I click on them, I can't do anything. Clicking is just for navigation through the map. So once they've been added and I have canceled their properties windows, I can't edit them just by clicking on them. So what I need is I have to basically change my pen, so my cursor, from a viewing tool to an editing tool. So this is super important for you to know in case you are stuck clicking at things and nothing is happening. So this is where you would change from viewing tool to editing tool. So what editing tool does now is once you click on any object, it becomes editable again. So you get the properties window again. Here we have a lot of other options that I can show you, but I'm still waiting for this upload. So uploaded models, it says completed. So I have a properties window that is open, but I don't see the model anywhere. This is happened because the model is not georeferenced. And these are some of the very important tools that you should know. The first one is navigate to object. So if I click here, it will show me where that object is. As we see, it's nowhere in space. But we want to move it back to where we want to place it. So I can just grab it and move it, slowly, but I will never get there. It's too troublesome. But if I go to the start view again, and I have to be mindful not to use the edit tool when I click on start, because as I said, this is a tool that will edit anything I touch, and I literally mean that. So if I click here, it will open the settings for the viewpoint, and if I click here, it will open the settings for the interface, and if I click here, it will open the settings for the icons as well, etc. So if I click on view tool, it will actually take me to where my start view was. So if I go back to detail, building detail, I still have that 3D model active. So now this time, instead of clicking on navigate to object, I will click on reposition object. And what I will do is I will place it here, and this will, basically bring the model where it should be. I can still move it a bit manually, or just by clicking on reposition, just move the position of the model until I'm satisfied, but this is not exactly where I want to put it. So so now I have a mesh model overlapping with my model. So what we have to do is to kind of flatten the surface here around that model, so that only this model sticks out. So we'll get to that in a second. But while we're still talking about the 3D models, just there are a lot of information here. You can look at it yourself and find out what there is. Just some quick notes on what you can do is you can change the color of the objects in the attribute panel. You can change its opacity as well. So you can also on this on-click window, you will see this on-click window on a lot of things. and they are all basically the same. This means that what happens when you click on an object. So right now nothing happens, but if I click on detail window and then go to the view tool and then click on this object, I can get a window that can add into which I can add information. So in case I want to let's say add 10 buildings and each one of those buildings has content, I can do that by editing this window. So when I click on the building, a panel would appear with pictures or text or embedded websites, etc. We will come back to that because we'll add one of these windows, but in a second, not now. Okay, so yeah.
When placing the model, is it possible to snap to any features or for precise locating and placing?
Sorry, can you ask again? Do you want to select parts of the model, or
when you're placing the model into the city model, is it possible to snap it against any features, or do you have to know the spatial coordinates that you want it to land in, or do it by eye?
No, usually you would, if the model is georeferenced, which it will almost always be, you won't have to manually move this because this is very improvised. Of course, you want it to place it directly where it should be. So you will actually georeference it in whatever program that you use and then export it to a collada and just drag and drop it, and it should land exactly where it's supposed to be. In that sense, you won't have to navigate that much. But if for some reason you can't place it correctly, you always have the option of moving it manually. And since this is a tool for visualizing, it's maybe not as important as some other tools where everything is supposed to be in 1 millimeter precise. So you of course have to see by yourself the workflow that you need.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so let's try and flatten the Earth here a bit so that the reality model doesn't break through the object here. So what the tool that we have here is, where is it? Terraform here. So what you could do is you could draw a terraform, or you can import a shape that already has the area that you want to flatten. So terraform is basically forming the terrain. So if I click draw here, what I will do is I will just, click around the object to mark the area that I want to flatten. I don't have to flatten it. I can of course extrude that area as well, depending on what height I'm targeting. So if I just click around it and double click to finish it, and I failed, yeah. Double click to finish it, you will see this blue area around here that marks where the flattened area will be. You of course can hide that so that you don't see that or maybe you want to add a color that it looks like a slab, for instance. In that sense, it might be okay to bring up the color here. But anyway, so by using that terraform tool, we basically flatten the terrain around the model, and now we don't have the mesh model sticking on the object. So you can do that, of course, in any part of the town wherever you have a mesh model. And as I said, you can create holes even. Let me bring that back so that you can see. So you have the height here. By default, it defaulted to 4 because 4 was the height where I started my clicking. If I had started anywhere higher, it would have defaulted all the other points to that first height point that I had selected. But I selected somewhere on the street, so it all kind of got into the same plane as the first button that I hit. Or you can, of course, extrude it and create a mountain if that's what you need. So I'll put it back to 4 here. Okay, so while I have Object Manager open here, I think it might be a good time to start mentioning it. So everything that I have added so far in the interface, so this model and these 2 cubes, they have all ended up in one button, one layer that's called layer by default. So once you drag anything to the interface, OCP automatically creates this button for you and calls it this generic name layer. But you can, by using edit tool, click on this and then edit everything that you need, or you can click on Object Manager, and then this will list everything, all the content that you have inside of your project. Then you can customize it, make groups, layers, rename, hide objects, etc. So this Object Manager is pretty important. So we'll start by explaining what it does and how it works. The first thing that you should know, it's subdivided into master and background. And inside of background is basically where you will keep your background. This means that it is not a button in the interface. The user, once it's published, cannot turn it off or on. I can do that while I'm editing the project just by clicking here. But this is not a button in an interface that can be affected by the users once it's published. But if I just take this layer and drag it up to the master, now it's not hidden anymore. So now it's a button in the interface that I can toggle off. So you can be mindful of everything that you put in background is basically like freezing. It is untouchable by anyone else once it's published. So that's why we always keep kind of all of our background layers and everything you want to treat as background into the background section. So if there's trees or anything else that you want to kind of freeze, you can put them into background. Master layer, so this is everything that will appear on the window. So it's all stacked up into one layer that's called layer, everything here. But what I can do, I can divide this into two buttons, two layers that are separated one from each other. And how I do that is I go here and click on Add Layer. I can automatically give it a name. Let's say I just want to put the cube and the tree inside. So what I go here is I grab this cube model and just drag it here. And then I grab the tree model and then just grab it here. So now this has become this other button, which is the cube, which I can toggle off, and then it turns off only these models inside. And this one stays turned on. So this is basically to put it in content. If you have a before and after state, you want to show what the city looks like at the moment and what it will look like once you have created your own object. So you would do this in this layer just by clicking on and off. But let's say you have an architecture competition, for instance, and you have more options. So you have more versions of one building on top of each other. So I can actually just place this here on top. It's not exactly a very good demo, but you will understand what I mean by this. So you can show different versions of different prepositions that you want to give. So let's say I want to when I click on cube, I want the cube to appear, but I want the other layer to automatically disappear. I don't want the users to be clicking on and off each time. So I can do that if I go here to master and then click on allow only one active group or layer. So this means that just one thing can be on at a time. So right now it's this layer, and when I click on cube, the layer automatically gets turned off. Now there's a problem because now I lost my terraform and then the cube is sticking through the mesh model. So what I can do here, I can click on it and just duplicate it here and then drag and drop it up here. So now I have the terraform that is applicable both on the cube and on this building. So this is a very quick way of showing what you can do, for instance, with layers, or what kind of how you can set up an architecture competition or anything similar, just by editing the layer or group properties here. But so far I've mentioned layers. I haven't shown groups. So if I click here on group, I'll create a group here. A group basically contains layers. So I can just grab this entire layer icon and drag it here to the group, and then I can grab this layer as well and then drag it here into the group. Now I have everything inside of one folder group layer that has these two options inside of it. So in case you can have more groups inside of them, 15 layers if you want. You can organize them depending on how you want to do that. So to explain these buttons here, the first one is, I think, pretty obvious. This is visibility, to turn on and off. This last one is locking, in case you don't want to move with the edit tool to activate or to do anything with any model. You can of course always lock them. And the middle one is pretty important for you to understand. So right now, this icon represents the access settings of an object or a layer in this sense. At the moment, it says, when I hover it here, you can read on top that it says editing users. This means that everybody who is an editing user or a creator has the right to see this model, which means that if I am inside of a project and I have added, let's say, Johan and Dorothea into my project, I have invited them. So they are the creators that are working inside this project with me. If this is set on editing users, this means that everybody that I had invited into the project can see my models. If I had set this, for instance, to this that says private, this means that even though I have invited Johan and Dora inside of this project, I am the only one who can see this layer. So if I want to keep it private, experiment with it, I can keep this on a private level, and I'm the only person that will see this model. If I click on it again, it will get to editing access. So like I mentioned, everybody who I invited to the project will see my model, this layer. If I click again, it will says access members. So these are the team members that I mentioned from before. These team members are, like I said, everybody who has been invited only to view the project. So if I set this to only to these team members, then only they can view the project before it's been published. They of course cannot edit anything, but they can at least see this layer. So if I if this remained to editing, those members could not see here that there's a 3D model. If I set the access, so this is the 4th stage, to public, this means that when I publish the project here, that model will appear and is visible. So what I'll do is I'll save this and then I'll show you what happens. I'll set this to public as well, and then maybe this one to private. So this, at the moment, the project that we created is unpublished. So if I go here to this button and click on this unpublished button and just hit this slider, this automatically means that a URL is generated, and I can even edit the name of the URL. It is automatically taken from the name of the project here. But if I want to rename it to something else, then this part, the end part, can change. And I click visit, and it will take me to the published version of my project. So if I go to group here, as you can see, I only have one layer. I don't have the cube layer because I set that part to private, as you can see here. And the other one that's public is accessible here. So this is basically what these access settings mean. So bear that in mind when you are creating a project. If you publish something and you don't see the results, that's because these access settings have not been set to public. So that's basically everything that you need to know from Object Manager. The most important thing is that this is where you access all the content to access the properties. Let's go over some basic things that you can do with editing these buttons. I'm sorry, is somebody mic on? I hear some background noise.
Sorry, I think that's mine. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So with the edit tool, we also have a shortcut, by the way, for switching between edit and view tool. It's the 1 and 2 buttons on your keyboard. So it kind of saves milliseconds of time that we love. Just by using the keyboard, you don't have to go here and click on edit tool every time. But let's say I click on edit tool, I go to group, and I enter the settings, and I want to kind of customize it to follow some design coding that I have inside of my municipality. So let's say you have your own hex code. You can enter that here. You can change the colors manually, of course. You can even change the icon. So if this group is going to represent buildings, you can click on it and you can choose some icon that represents buildings. For instance, I don't know, this one is used commonly. Or you can choose some other icon that represents roads or whatever it is that you want to visualize. And I mean, we have a lot of icons here that you can use by default, outlined versions, even colorful emojis, etc. But the good thing is to know that you can also upload your own material. So if you have your own, for instance, this was the logo that I took from the Dublin Docklands and made a logo from that. I uploaded that here. So that option is also available here. So once you've decided which icon to use, you click OK. And yeah, that basically means you've changed the color of it and the icon inside. You can do the same thing for these icons as well. So right now they're blue and they have like a layer symbol. And if I go to Edit Tool and click on them, I can also, you know, change the icon or change the color, whatever I want. So you can customize a lot just by using the Edit Tool and using these properties. There are a lot of properties that are here. For instance, you can add a standard view once you click on a group. So let's say when I click on which property am I at anyway? So let's say when I click on group, I want to zoom in to this group here. So I said custom and I click set. So if I zoom out and use the view tool and then click on the group, it will zoom into that position where I want it to go. So if I have one building here, the other building can be scattered somewhere else. I can have multiple layers, and when I click on a layer, it will take me to this to this object. If I click here, it will take me to some other object, etc. Depends on how you want to visualize this. The point here is that you would want to make it as easier as possible for the users, so they don't have to manually zoom in or find any buildings. You can customize it so that everything is kind of self-explanatory and easy for them. Okay, so these are some basic things like 3D model and editing groups. We also have a very important thing that's called a point of interest, which is basically like an bubble information that you click on that communicates that there's something here that you need to read, or it just drags attention that it will give you some content if you click on it. To start with, you can reposition it, change its height or change its size, or add a label on top. Let's say info. So you can add text above it. You can have just a simple marker where you can change the color, or you can even add a marker inside of it. So if you want to add, for instance, information, you can do that by adding a marker, or you can have only a marker if that's what you want, or you can only have text, so no icons if you don't want an icon. So let's say that we wanted this is too much info if we put info and info on top. So let's say that this is okay. So we have this icon, and again, you can add your own icons if you have some custom icons that you want to use. And the next page here on the properties is what happens when I click on it. So I'll click on this so that you can see what appears. So right now I have a window that doesn't have anything, but I can add a title to it. So information, typo. So information, I can add images if I want to. So I had actually prepared this. Let's try. If it's not too big, I hope it will load fast. You can basically grab any image as long as it's in a JPEG or PNG format. It will load normally. You can also import GIF, so GIF formats as well, if you have something like a video that you want to show. So this is importing a bit slowly, but try with another image.
For this building, could you add, say, like a web link to the website about the building?
Yes, yeah. I'll get to that. I'll
Okay,
just finish this one, and that is the second button here. I'll try and click on it again. Sometimes it takes some time before, if the pictures are big, before it uploads, but it will show up. So underneath the images, once they pop up, you can also add descriptions. So you can write the text here, of course, manually. But I already prepared text that I just copy and paste for these tutorial purposes, so that you can see what it looks like. You can, of course, format all of this by using our formatting options here, or you can just grab any text from anywhere and just paste it here. You can also add attachments. So if you want to, for them to download some kind of file or pamphlet or whatever it is that you need, you can also attach that here. You can edit the sharing options. So once you're done with this content, you can make it possible so that you can, or the users can share it on their Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, whatever. You just have to make this activated here. So if I scroll on the top, on the bottom, I'll see the Facebook, Instagram. Maybe I just want to generate a link, and that's enough. Then I'll just leave this link here. Style options, maybe I'm not okay with the pink color, so if I want, I can change the color here. I could change the width of the window. If maybe this is too kind of stretched down, I can put this 500, for instance, and then it will change as well. Start view, if I click on a bubble, I can make it so that it always leads to a specific start view. So let's say I want this. I can click on custom and click set here. And then when I click on that, I can turn this off. When I click on that window, then again, it gets zoomed in. Unfortunately, my pictures did not show up. I wonder why. I hope they're not that big, but we'll give it some time and then come back to it. Okay, so your question was if you can embed a web page. So yes, you can do that. I'll show you with our homepage. I did this, I think, in the Dublin demo as well. I grabbed the Docklands website and then embedded that. So what you have to, you can add the title here and then just paste the website in here, and then it will, as you can see, load automatically. So you don't have to actually configure content for each product manually. You can just, if it's already done on your website, you can just link it to it. I just have to say that in order for this to work, this has to be enabled on your side as well. So sometimes when municipalities create their own websites, they put some blockers that disables someone else to use their website and publish it somewhere. So this has to be enabled on your side, that we can use your website and embed it here. So just in case it doesn't work for, but it did work for Dockland. So in case it doesn't work for some other site, you have to make sure that this is allowed. Cool. You can also upload YouTube videos. I think I'm not going to show YouTube video now, but yeah, you can basically upload a song or a video that you uploaded into YouTube. So we have actually a client in Stockholm that exported a 360 video and then uploaded that into their account and then embedded that video into the project. So when you click on a point of interest, then you can see the video flying over the same model in Open Cities Planner. So you can do all of these things with POIs. And as I said, you can do that with a POI, but you can also do that by clicking on any object. So it works on 3D objects as well. But with POIs, it's visually kind of more obvious that for users that they should click on this, because if you just see a 3D model, you don't necessarily think that there's content in it. So we recommend always to use points of interest if you're going to embed some kind of data.
Is this also where you would add, say, like a form for people to give feedback about the building?
No, that's a form builder.
Okay.
We'll get to that. That it's a separate big thing, but we'll create a form as well.
Okay.
Let's see if okay, we've been through viewpoints. Oh, I think we're gonna skip interactions. This is a bit more complicated. Maybe if we have time in the end. Project info is pretty important, so we can mention that now. So project info is basically this button here. It's one of the most important things that will explain. Oh, there you have it. I already embedded this web page from before. So
I
this
think
information.
Our screen might be a bit behind yours. Maybe it's just mine.
Okay. Do you see the side panel here?
On mine, the view is just your mouse hovering over interactions.
Okay, so it's a bit frozen.
Here.
Then it might be on my side. We'll give it some time. Maybe it's uploading those images. No, we switched to embedding. I'm really curious if it still needs time. Okay.
Yeah, now I can see the Dublin demo panel.
You can see.
It just appeared.
Okay. But do you see it hidden now? I just want to check if it's updated completely.
Just dropped down then, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this information button here on the bottom, it's basically the first and most obvious place where you can explain your project. You can explain them by points of interest, but these usually explain kind of local areas inside of the project. But if you want to give some overall information to the users, what they're looking at, then you do that in the information tab. So right now, if I go to Edit Tool, I have decided to embed this web page here and use that as information. But again, I don't have to embed, sorry, too much talking. I don't have to embed a website. I can just, like before, use images, add a description, add attachments, and edit the sharing options. I also can choose whether it's a side panel or whether it appears as a window here by default when you open the project. So you can choose how you want to represent your most basic information here. Sorry, I'm gonna have to drink some water. Maybe my voice comes back. Okay, so these three icons here, the first one is where we usually store the municipality's logo, but it also has a function. So when you click on it, basically all the content disappears except for the compass here. So if you don't want to have all these buttons on the side and the instructions for navigations, you just click on this button here. The instruction for navigation, I suppose I could have started by explaining how to navigate through Open Cities Planner. I think that's pretty important, but everybody who has been working with Revit or SketchUp or any kind of program where you have to zoom in, zoom out, or navigate, I think it will be very intuitive to you. But in case if you do need instructions, you have this as a reminder. And if you are using a touchpad, you can click here and then see how you can move around with touchpad. And if you don't need instructions to how to move, how to zoom or zoom out or tilt or rotate, you can of course turn these off. You can just go here to the graphic settings, and then the lowest part, it says show instructions. If I just uncheck this part, then I won't have the instructions anymore. Another thing for navigation is you can just zoom in, zoom out, but there's also an option of ground view, which is very similar to how Street View on Google Maps functions. So what basically happens is that you land on a surface, and then just by clicking around, you can walk around and see what this street, for instance, looks like from a pedestrian perspective, and then you can turn around. You can exit it by, as it says here, just by clicking on the right button. And it's important to say that it doesn't only work on horizontal surfaces. You can also literally click on anything that you want to visualize from a ground view perspective. So this would be actually a window view perspective. So if you want to see what the view is from this window, you can also do that by double clicking on the surface. For the graphic settings here, you can also edit the quality of the model that you're working with. So right now I'm on low quality just to have the model work faster. But if I toggle here to medium, to high, or to maximum, then some things change, as you may notice. When you're on maximum, you even have the shadows activated. And here they're activated, but very slightly. So if you want to do some shadow studies, it is best if you kind of keep this on high. And how you edit these settings, where you edit how low is low or how high is high, is the first thing that we ignored when I started this demo. Is this first window that appears when you click on map dataset and you draw a map dataset inside of here, a background inside of here. So these are the properties of that background, and these LOD settings are basically these settings. So low, so if I delete this, it will say low. This will be high. So medium, medium, high, and maximum. So here you would manually add the values of how sharp you want the resolution of your model to be. And the basic way to do that is to start by a bigger value. So let's say start by 500 and then go from 500 to a lower value. So the lower the value, the more detailed the resolution of the model will be. You can use these settings for desktop, or you can also edit the settings for iOS, so for Apple products, or for Android, in case you're watching this from a mobile or a tablet. What this means is that we usually put bigger values here because mobiles and tablets are usually slower and cannot handle that much data. So if you put the resolution to be very high for a mobile phone, it may not work, or it may not be too slow, and it just won't be very good user experience. So you can always edit the settings here for that purpose as well. So I will keep it low for this tutorial. It is not very important for the demo to be visually flashing, but for the content to load faster. So that is why I am switching here. Field of view is also something that you can edit in case you want to visualize something from a different depth. You can also, so we have free flight mode. So this is one of the tools that you can activate here. So once I click on this, now you can't see this, but now I'm actually moving with my keyboard. So just like in a video game, I can move around with my keyboard in this free flight mode. So these are the settings for that free flight mode. Maybe I want to move around way faster. So this was super fast, or way slower. So I would use these settings here. Ground view. So when I entered ground view here, oh, sorry, I have to exit free flight first. When I entered ground view here, I landed on a height of 1.8 meters. So that is the average height of a person. But if I want, I can enter into height of 5 meters, and then it will be a bit of a different experience. But if there's a reason for it, you can also edit in which height you enter ground view mode. So these are all the graphics settings. You can play around with them and see what it looks like to change the settings. But that is basically what you can do here. So we explained what this button does. The information button is where you would explain your project. The content button, this basically hides all these layers here on top. So by default, you would get viewpoints, you would get groups and layers that you customize, but you will also get these tools. You can also customize these tools and see whether you need some of these or you don't. But I will show you first what they do and then how to remove or add them. So let's just first, or maybe just leave this one once it loads. Okay, let's see what this one does. So when I click on it, I automatically get my shadows loaded. And then I can, by toggling this slider, visualize all the shadows depending on what time it is or what date it is. So this is like a very fast sun and shadow analysis that you and both the users can do once the project is published. So the scenario would be if you have some kind of development and a neighbor has a building here, they would want to use the sun and shadow tool just to see how long will it affect him, and will it even reach its balcony, etc. We also have the measure tool. So this is also a very basic tool where you can measure distances if maybe somebody's curious to see how long or the area of the building. You can also add areas, etc. But or maybe they want to check the distance between their building and the new building, or if for some reason that is interesting to them. Free flight mode is, I explained a second ago, so just another way of navigating through the map. And the last button is the view mode. So in this view mode, you can choose to, for instance, only have a 2D map. In that sense, I cannot tilt or rotate the model. I can only view it as a 2D map, or I can toggle it to a 3D map. I can choose whether to toggle from one or the other, or I can just freeze in one state if that's how I want to publish my project. So what I can do with these tools is I can remove some of them. Maybe I don't want free flight mode to be available for everyone once I publish the project. So what I would do is I would again go to Edit tool and then click on free flight mode. And then I can just uncheck this enable part, and then it will be removed from here. But from here, I can access all these other tools as well. So if I click here on view mode, I can choose to disable the view mode, or I can see some other settings that are available here. So right now I saw the 2D map and 3D map, but I can also enable switching from desktop to mobile. So if I have published this online, users that will access it from mobile will automatically open it as a mobile view, but they can have the option of switching to desktop view if for any reason it's easier. So you can enable that from here, and then the users can click here and then jump from one view to another. Okay, so I think we covered the interface. We covered project info, we covered templates, we covered map data sets, points of interest. So the only difference here to know is that you can add a single point of interest, or you can add multiple points of interest. So if you want one type of point of interest, let's say you want to add cafes, and then just place them the same style of the icon on multiple locations, then you can do that by just choosing this multiple, and they will always appear the same, as you can see here.
Irma, can you import like a KML or a file of place marks, points of interest, from say Google Earth or somewhere like that?
So KML is basically a KMZ file, which is the file that we support here. KMZ and KML are basically the same. So what you would want to do is you would want to import maybe the position of the icon or the physical icon itself.
Just the position.
Just
so
the
if
position.
You had a couple of shape files or data sets of, I'm sure Dublin City Council have lots of, say, manhole locations or sign locations, or you have databases of those. Can those be imported?
Yes. So maybe I can open.
Because I was thinking they might want to import if it was like a housing development, like bus stops or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to the help section again to open the data type documentation that we have here. So inside of Data Manager, you can configure connections to databases. So you can store all this information in spatial databases such as PostGIS, Oracle, Microsoft, or CityGML, and we can read that from a 3D City database. I don't know if this speaks to you or not, but this is basically what you would have to do. So if you had some kind of information that is stored, a spatial information, you can save that inside of one of these databases. You have to organize them in sheets that are necessary for it to be stored into these databases, and then we can connect Data Manager to it and then fetch this information automatically, which basically means that if you change any of the icons inside of these databases, let's say you're working with 3D City database, you change some kind of content inside of this database, it will automatically be refreshed and updated in Open Cities Planner as well.
Emma, as well as, sorry, go on, Parag.
No, I just see Esri shapefiles there as well for vector features. So that might be,
we are. That part will be covered with this tutorial. It's very easy to import shapefiles, so I will cover that just by dragging and dropping that on the interface. But there's even more complex ways of adding shapefiles through Data Manager. We can talk about that even later. Somebody else also had a question.
I think that's the answer to my question. So as well as adding like a layer that has, say, bus stops, is a shapefile one where you'd add, say, like a flooding zone?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same?
You can flooding zone as in shapefile. Yeah, you can organize that into layers as well, and then just toggle flooding zones on and off with buttons.
Okay, perfect, cool.
It just depends on how you want to, of course, visualize it in the project. But yeah, importing that is okay.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, let's see where we were off. Okay, so points of interest we covered, 3D models we covered. Let's jump into shapefiles now. I think we're ready. Okay, so these were the projects that I published. I can turn these off. So I'm using a different background here because I have already some prepared shapefiles for this background that I usually use for training. I didn't have anything specific for Dublin area. So I mean, showing this will be I think good enough as well. So what I'm going to do here with shapefiles inside of the field terrain texturing, you can see that we support images, shapefiles, and WMS files. So we'll start by shapefile. If I click here, I will see which files I need to import for this to work. So there are 3 files that I need. This is the SHP, SHX, and DBF files that I need to import here. So I have that already prepared. These 3 files, I just grab them here and drop them into this window. So it will upload the files. And as you can see here, what I did here is I did some basic terrain texturing with the shapefile here. What I could do, we also have some custom settings for the shapefiles. So if you have edited them and, for instance, added a color value, we can connect to that color value that you inscribe to the shapefile and then visualize it here. The colors only have to be in hex codes inside of attribute tables. If you have also edited the opacity, we can also read and visualize that. If, for instance, you have added a height value, we can also connect that to a height value and then visualize it as 3D objects. So this is also a pretty fast way of visualizing very simple volumes that are just extruded to represent buildings. So you can do that via shapefile as well. So if I want to change the color, I have the color option here as well, but it will not be visualized until I detach this from the options here. The opacity is the same, so I have to detach the opacity to be able to actually change the opacity manually. Or I can just stick to whatever I have already decided in the shapefiles, in the attributes. So this is the most basic version of adding a shapefile. In here, I don't think these shapefiles have any attributes, but in case you do have attributes, we can also connect to those. Let me see if, yeah, so right now when I click on it, it will show what attribute it has. So colors, extrude value, opacity, the object ID, etc. So if you have some better information on, maybe you want to click on a specific shapefile and then give information, you can also do that by adding that info in the attributes, and then we can read that here in Open Cities Planner. Another thing that I can do here is, as you remember, Terraform, I can draw something to flatten the terrain, but I can also import an already drawn area that has been georeferenced. So I will have to use shapefile again for that. So if I go here and then just grab these 3 files and drag them here into the window, what happens is here I have already marked an area where I want to flatten the terrain, so I don't have to draw it manually if I want to do it in a more precise way. Again, I will have to align the color with the color, the opacity with the opacity, and the terraform, or basically the height value, with the extrude, and then it will be flattened exactly on the level in which I need. What I want to add as well is an image underneath, and this will probably be something that you will do a lot. So if I go just to images, it will say which kind of images Open Cities Planner supports. So it's these 3 types plus world file, which is optional. So world file basically means that it makes your image georeferenced. So if I want to, I can just drag this image here into the interface, and it will land somewhere in the interface. It won't be accurate. But if I grab the world file as well and then drag it into the window here, then it will land exactly where I want it to land. And I think that what I will create here now quickly is a kind of probably a scenario that you will want to create as well, to visualize any type of urban development. So you have your detailed plan underneath, and then on top of that you position your buildings. So this is the best way of doing that is, of course, to georeference it all before you import it into Open Cities Planner. But the point here is that we support images, shapefiles, and terraforms that are in a format of shapefile that flatten terrain automatically. That was the only thing I think I wanted to show in this separate one. But let's see if we covered. So we did. Okay, WMS. Do you guys use WMS? Are you familiar with what it is?
I understand it's like a live link into a GIS. Am I right in saying that? Like a web mapping service?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I don't have a link. Maybe there is something already pre-configured here. I don't have a link to show you how the work would look like, but this basically means that so I added this image manually, and this kind of has its boundaries. But if I want to add an image rendered on top of this entire map, for instance, I want to render where the street goes, and just to have those streets as a layer, as an image layer. I can render that here as well. I can connect to a WMS server where I have all my images stored. I just have to have the URL to that server. If I have a username or password in order to access it, I add those information as well. And then I just connect to that WMS server. Usually municipalities, cities, they all have kind of the open data that they can fetch from different state organizations that give this information for free. So you would probably be able to get that information as well. This will just render more, I think I have a demo with that, and I can show you how it looks like once it's added. So this is a WMS layer. This is basically an image, and then on top of that layer, they have so much content. They also have visualization of water flooding, of areas that are like culturally protected, of areas with woods, etc. Just by clicking on these, they are actually fetching information from a WMS server that then renders that on top of the terrain. So the point here is that you can add all these images manually, or you can link to a server that already has all this content and just visualize it in a very simple way. The only thing you would have to do here is to organize that content into groups and layers. So it's taking a bit of time to load, but this is basically what I mean. And sometimes these WMS layers can have information as well. So you can edit that when you click on a specific layer, that you have a window that pops up with attributes, informations, etc. So this is all something that you can edit here in the WMS layer. If you haven't been doing this before, or you're not familiar with that, I suggest that you do some research about it, because it is usually very helpful for municipalities or everybody working in urban development, because it's a lot of information that is very useful, that is just one click away from rendering in the map. Terraform, so that's for flattening the terrain, we explained. Data Manager is for what I said, for creating new backgrounds. So we skipped that part, but we can now finally talk about Form Builder. And I think you're probably all very tired, but we only have a few more things to cover, and then we are done.
Oh, it's really interesting. Thank you.
We can't be as tired as you are.
Yeah.
Well done so
Probably
far.
true. Okay, so when I clicked on Form Builder, I basically went somewhere else. As you can see, the interface changed. So this is because we want you to focus completely on the form and all the information that you have here. So how this works is that you add pages here. So you can, just by clicking here, you can add a page. So I created a page right now, but it has no content. And what I can do is I can fill it with components. So everything inside here is a component. These two can only be used once per page. So once we drag this, this category, this basically serves as a layer. Before you start answering a questionnaire, you can choose in which category to store your information. So as an example, we had a municipality that published its project and then had categories like what areas of the city are you unsafe in? What areas of the city would you like to change? What areas of the city are your favorite areas, etc. So they were all into categories here, and the user, once the form appeared, can first click on what they want to comment on. So let's say we can, I mean, this can be basically anything. If you are a salesperson and you want to sell an apartment in an urban development, you can choose the category can be which building you want to send an inquiry for. So it can be apartment 1, apartment B, apartment C, etc. So you can get creative with what these categories are for, but the basic concept is they serve as layers. Just by clicking here, by clicking add a category, I add a new one. By clicking on delete, I delete it. If I click on the category here, I can change the color. I can change the name. I can also add the hex code if I have it, etc. So I can click on each one of them and then add them manually, one by one. So I'm not going to waste more time on that. I think you understand the concept. So this usually works in a way that when you click on it, you get to the editing settings, just as a reminder. So right now I can exit this and then go back to the rest of the components. So let's say I want them to comment on something A, B, or C, D, and then I can give maybe some information before that. So this component actually is a place where I can inform the users what this form is about. So here you can write, hi, we want to get information or your feedback on this area of the development, blah, blah, blah. You can explain what the development is about, what you want them to comment, and why you need that, why are you gathering that information. So you would usually start by informing what they're doing, then they can choose the categories. There are create tools that you can use. So these create tools basically mark positions on the map. So maybe you want them to mark the area where they want something to be changed. So you can have this as an option, and then they can click on it and then mark any area in the city. We'll finish this form and then I'll show you how it works. But before that, again, if I click here on this mark, I can unselect it. If I click on this, I can unselect this. So I can choose what kind of tools they can have. They can only mark positions, or they can draw lines, or they can draw areas. Just as an example, it's become a popular thing in Sweden to create form builders for children to draw their ways, the way that they get from home to school. So they usually leave only the draw line tool, so that they can, by their finger on the mobile, draw what their route is. And I'm supposing they use this information to make that route safer, or maybe just for inquiry reasons. But just to give you an example of how that is used so far. There's a search bar. So let's say that you have imported streets as information in Open Cities Planner. We can connect to a database and load that as well. So then the users can search for their address before they mark a position. Maybe they can find it just by zooming in or zooming out. You can also enable this search bar to make it easier for them. And then again, you can add instructions if you think it's needed, or you can change the search to something else, or change a language if you want, etc. Question, in case you want them to leave a question for you, or a comment or whatever, you can do that by adding a text field here, or a single line, or multiple fields, depending on how you want to edit this. But basically what this is for you to get a response from the users that are answering this form. Then you can also add satisfaction if you want to see if they're happy with the project that you created or not. You can delete the text if you don't want to have the text, or you can rename it. Or maybe you just want them to have the option of saying that everything is great. You can also, edit that. Another thing you can do, you can enable attachments. So one use case was that same municipality that asked for instance, safe, unsafe places, favorite places, etc. They also had the option of attaching a file. So for instance, somebody who is on site with their mobile, they could be answering the form from their mobile. They can take a picture of the site that they were commenting on, and then attach that as an image or a PDF or whatever they have here inside of the form. So I have a lot of components here just in one page. So I'll just split this in maybe 2 pages, and then I can just drag these down and customize them in whatever sense that I want. Usually these pages are used for, each page represents something else. So the first page will gather information on one thing, the second page will gather information on another thing. So it all depends on how you want to customize it. Then after submitting, just by clicking here, I open the settings here. I can edit the success message and write thank you for your submission is somehow the default, but you can say what, so Kiitos in Finnish if that's what you need. Then you can share that. You can share it on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So the same as it was in points of interest, but if you maybe want to only share it on Facebook, you can just enable Facebook here. And this part is very important. So once you, this form will automatically appear once you publish a project, but you don't have to. You can set it to approve. So this means that whenever anybody comments on your form builder, you will see the comments before they are published in the project. So once you approved of that comment, because you might get comments that are maybe not something you would like to publish for everyone to see. In that sense, you can choose to approve the comments before they are public for everybody to see. You can set an email address where you want all of the comments to end up. So that's also an option here in the settings. So once I'm, yeah, sorry.
Is it always that the idea that the comments are published on Open Cities Planner, or would it be sometimes that they never get publicly published?
Both. So we had users that published literally everything everybody wrote, and it was a completely open platform, and everybody could read whatever anyone had to comment on parts of the city. But for instance, this road, the kids drawing the roads to the school, that was done privately because the municipality did not want to publish information like that for everyone to see. Okay. So you can, depending on what the use case is, you can choose whether if it's something everybody will read or if it's just for your investigation. Or
and if like say you have a category in the start of the form that asks for their email, would they get an email sent to them saying thank you for your submission, here's a copy of it?
Yeah. No, not by default. Once you are, once you have created a form, you automatically get that after submission parts. So this one. So if you enable, let's go back here. So it says thank you for your submission, but you can also choose to, for instance, to mail your submission to yourself. Okay. So you can have that option, or just generate a link and then store it wherever you want. But it won't automatically send an email to you, to the user that answered.
Okay. But is it possible to do that?
I'm sure there a lot of things are possible with Open Cities Planner. It's just a matter of coding and engaging our developers on adding that as an option.
Okay.
So I can't say that. Yeah. It's hard to say yes or no to anything because both is possible actually. By default, it is not an option here, but maybe it's easy to add. Another thing, so as I mentioned, that categories you can only use once. Another thing that you can only use once is user information. So I'll add that as a last thing that the user has to add. So by default, you get your name, email address, location, age, gender, and agreeing to terms of condition. But if you click here and then you have the settings, you can uncheck whatever it is that you don't want them to show. Maybe you just want their name and email address, so it's all customizable by you. And you can of course always change it doesn't have to be your name. Maybe you're asking for something else that was not on the options here, so you can also do that. So what I can do here is I can duplicate whatever I selected. If I hit duplicate here, then I have a double smiley face, so I can delete this because I don't want this. I'm just showing you the options here. And then of course I always have to hit save before I leave the form builder in order for it to appear in the Open Cities Planner editor. So if I click exit here, at first I won't see the buttons here because I've already customized that they don't appear. Let me first save this. We've done a lot of editing just so that we don't lose information. So I have it. It has to appear as one of buttons here in the lower lane. If I click on the edit tool and then click on any of these icons, I can open the settings for the interface. So here I am in the ribbon, and here I see buttons. So dialog button. It is disabled for now, and the dialog answers, it has been disabled as well. So basically, once I create a form builder, I get these two options, and let's see what they do. I have to switch to view tool first. So when I click here on share feedback, I actually get that form pop up. Let me just save first. Let me reload. These connection issues have been a bit troublesome, but I hope it will work again. finally. So once I clicked on the first button, I got the questionnaire here. As you can see, some information. I can choose which category the answer will fall to. So mark position. So I can choose this. I can zoom in to anywhere I want to give a comment to. I can leave it here and say, yes, I'm done. I can draw a line if I want to. So let's say that I want to comment on this line here. Or I can even draw an area, maybe whatever I'm answering to concerns this entire block. So I could do that as well. If I had a database where I have addresses, I could search, but I don't have that configured here. I can give my response, attach a file, give my feedback, and add my name. And then once I'm done with that, I can click OK. So this is what happens once you've done once you are done with the comment. So you can share that on Facebook, generate a link, or send it to your email or whoever email you want, or you can just click close. So I can enter here again and do another submission, or I can click here and see the citizen suggestions. So right now I have all these categories here that I have by default. So if I had like 50 answers, I could choose to organize them as layers so that I can visualize maybe only the last category or all of them or just one or two or whatever. So I can do that like this. And on the suggestion list, it will list all of the answers that you have received. And then again, this is not loading still because today is not a good day for a demo. But we'll give it some time. It will, oh yeah, here it is. So it has one of my answers, and then here I can see what I had answered and which area I had marked, etc. What I could do here is I could mark this once it's published. I can like thumb up it and say that I like the suggestion or whatever it is, or I can share that with my friends, etc. And then the more likes they get, the more popular a specific comment becomes, and that could be useful for on your side for some reason. So these comments also get heat like on social media, etc. So you can of course choose not to show these comments. So if I go to edit tool and click on this button, I can just uncheck this here. And then I won't have the suggestions. Then I will only be able to leave feedback, but not also read the feedback of other users. So that's important for you to know where you can hide that. Okay. I think we've been through all of these tools. So I haven't explained manage, but we've basically used a lot of the tools for manage just by directly accessing them on the interface. But so what I have here in manage, I have settings. You can see what all these settings are for, but the most important one would be history. In case you have something happened, you want to go back to a previous state or something broke or whatever, you can go to history and then go back to the last date that or state that you saved your project in, and then continue working from there. Another important thing is project properties, where you can check your coordinate system and make sure that the coordinate system is correct. In case you are uploading your 3D models and they end up in the wrong place, make sure that the coordinate system of the 3D model and of the map are the same. Another thing here, we didn't talk about portals, but that is a very big subject. I'll just mention it shortly. The interface, this is where you can select a theme color. So as you can see, when I hover, everything is blue, but I can change the theme color to whatever color I want. If my municipality, your municipality maybe has its own theme color, you can edit that here, and this is the complementary that also appears in the interface a lot. So now I added this color, change this color instead. So there are a lot of things you can do. You can customize the ribbons like I showed you here in the bottom by clicking enable disable. There's a masthead that you can upload. If you want the logo of the city to appear here on top, you can just click upload here and then use any of these formats, etc. You can change typography. You can there's a lot of things that you can customize still. I suggest that you do some research yourself, because otherwise this will take too long. But in the meantime, I would just quickly like to go over portal, because this could be useful. So what the portal is, let me try and open an example. I might have shown this before. This is kind of a default project that we show. So as you can see here, the project information appears as the first thing when you upload, when you open a project. So these are portals. So actually, this state is a portal, and these buttons are projects or sub portals, like we call it. What this means is, if you want to organize your content in the city, to have a separate project where each one of them has its own focus. So when I click on it, I dive into that project specifically with only the content of that project, with its own viewpoints, with its own buttons I can toggle on and off, with its own tools that I have, with its own project info. You can separate that and create a sub-project from that. And if you have multiple ones, you can organize them all inside of one portal. It's kind of a cleaner way to display a lot of heavy content. So you don't have to show all of the development in just one site. You can just focus on each one and then represent them as buttons. So how you do that is you do that through the portal settings here. So I went to manage and then portal. If I want to make this a portal, so if I want this to be where all the sub projects are stored, I just click here on this is a portal, and then I can choose from the list what I want to add as a subportal. So what I want, which projects that I already have in the instance that I want to add to be like buttons inside of this project. So the only two ones I have are these two. I automatically got generated these two bubbles. They are just placed randomly in the map. But if I open this project specifically and then go to these portal settings, I can change this icon, the size, what is inside of it. If there's a label, I can move the icon somewhere else, etc. If you just play around, you'll see it's not very difficult to understand, but it's important for you to know that that this is where you would find it. Important to mention are two more things. So one of them is Sun Study. Sun Study is basically the same thing as the tool Sun and Shadow, where you analyze the shadows of the development. But with the Sun Study tool, you can actually create a document that gets exported that you can use then later in whatever process you need it. So you can export it as a PDF. You can add description, what you have done with the Sun Study, which images you have taken, or you can export it just as images. So in one scenario that I did, I exported them as images, and I chose dates that were like every hour. I chose one day and then exported an image for every hour to see how the shadow changes. And then I combined all those images into one GIF, so GIF, like a small video, and then uploaded that online. So you can even use that and do like a small video that visualizes how the sun goes around a specific building. Or you can just, like I said, export a document, a PDF document, where you, just by clicking here, you can choose when do you want to export the images from. So right now it's set to March 9 a.m., 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. You can add time, you can delete time, depending on what you want to export. So this is where you edit the dates. You can even dim the background if you want, dim the terrain in the background, and the shadow settings, it can have an opacity, it can be very thick depending on how you want to visualize it. And just by clicking on export, you will generate a PDF with all this information, or an image. Another thing, this is, so export. Export is pretty important. I think I'll jump into here with export 3D. First, I have to save. The reason why I'm jumping here is because I can export 3D model here, but I can't export 3D model here, because we have integrated this mesh model with a Bing map, and the Bing map cannot be exported for legal reasons. So if you want to export some parts of your 3D model and then work on it, I suggest you create another project in which you have the mesh model without the Bing map. And the way it works is that you go to Export 3D, you click on it, and then you basically go to whatever you want to export, and just mark the area around that building. Double click, and this is basically what's going to be exported. So you can choose to export it as a KM set or a collada file. You can even choose the quality if it's going to be super detailed or low if you want something very fast. You can choose as separate files in case you have a background that has a difference between a model that is on top and a background that is the floor. That is not the case with reality mesh models, because this recognizes it as one model. The trees and buildings and the floor are all one unseparable shape model. So this will just be a single file regardless of what you chose here. And then you can create a terraform for the selected area, which means that it will flatten the surface of the area that you selected. And just click export. And what it will do, it will start the export process. And once the export is done, you will get a notification on your email, and you can download that 3D model from your email, or you can come back to Open Cities Planner, select it, and then click download. So where I usually use this for, like I said, I use SketchUp for georeferencing the models. So what I could do here is I could, my workflow would be that I would export an area where I want to place a building. So let's say I want to place it here. I would export this 3D model. I would open it into SketchUp. That would make, once I open that model into SketchUp, that will make that part georeferenced automatically by default. So that means that that area will be georeferenced in SketchUp. So once I place a model on top of that model, so if I place my 3D model on top of that in SketchUp, that model will be georeferenced correctly. So all I need to do is to export my new 3D model and then export it as a collada file and then import it here, and it will land on the exact same spot that it's placed on in SketchUp. I hope this made sense. It's a bit vague explaining it without showing it, but that is usually the workflow that I would use if I want to make something perfectly georeferenced without using external map that might differ in a few centimeters from what I will have in Open Cities Planner. Except for Export 3D, you can also export images. So let's say that you have a very good 3D model, a good representation of whatever you are creating. You can click here on Export Image. Instead of just like using a screenshot here, you can export whatever view you have saved here. You can export it into a resolution up to 4 times the size. So this is pretty big for it. It's good for billboards. It would still have very high quality. And then you can choose to export it as a PNG and JPEG. So this is for presentation purposes mostly. Let's go back here. Export 360 image. So if you have some kind of software that reads 360 images, you can also use that to export a 360 image here. You have some default settings here, and then you export it as a JPEG or a PNG and click export, and then you will download a 360 image. Another thing, you can export the comments. So I think this was a question that you had in our first meeting that we had, whether you can use the comments for something else, and the answer is yes. So if you go here to export comments, everything that you have received from the users will be, you can export them, whether as shape files if you want to save the markations, the areas that they marked, if you want to export it as an Excel file with all the content organized into tables, or just as a PDF. So you can just select whatever it is that you want and then click export, and then get all the comments and then maybe organize them some other way that you want. An important thing is export video. And I think that's going to be the last thing we're going to talk about. And we have 3 minutes. is you can create a video in Open Cities Planner. I think I mentioned that, but I'm going to show you how to visualize it. Let's go back here and then open this layer. So let's say I want to create a video around this object. What I do is I click export video. I have this setting that opens automatically, and I just start by clicking on the interface to draw a loop of where the camera will fly. And if I click play here, you will see what it looks like. And as you can see, it's horrible. So I'll click stop and then do some editing. So what I can do is I can move these nodes. I can move them in a vertical way so that this node was a bit too slow. It went into the building. So if I just move them upwards, then it might look better. As you can see, it's okay now. But the thing is that I wanted to look at the building instead of where the loop is where the camera is, the way in which camera is going. So if I click on each one of these nodes, there's another blue line here. And if I grab it, I can just place it wherever I want the camera to look at. So if I just grab each one of these blue ones and then focus them on the same spot and then click play, you can see that now I'm actually looking at the building. So I won't have time to edit each one of these nodes, but I think you understand how this works. What you can do here is you can save this file as a JSON file and then do some editing of the nodes if you want something specific. For instance, all of them to be on the same height. It's difficult that you will kind of get that manually, but if you have some kind of coding experience, you can download that and find the coordinates and then just change the coordinates manually, upload the file back inside, and then the nodes will be changed exactly the way you want. Another thing why this is very useful is in case you are working on the video, but you haven't been done for any reason, you have to go home, your work day is over, you can save this and then tomorrow you can upload it again and then continue editing these nodes. And once you are done with the video, you can finish some by editing some export settings like the name of the video, how fast the video is. So if I put this to 5, you see the video moves way faster. So you can edit the speed here, the frames per second. You can choose whether it's a quality standard video or a 360 panorama. The difference is if it's a standard video, you will only see whatever you decide the camera is seeing. But if you choose a 360 panorama view, it basically means that the camera will still follow this path, but the user can, if you're using a VR set, can turn around and look around regardless of where the camera is facing. So they can look around 360. Or if you're exporting this to YouTube, for instance, they can with the mouse drag the view or up, down, or whatever. And then you can, of course, choose the resolution if it's just for preview or if it's full HD. You click export and then you generate a video, and then you can use that and upload it on your, I don't know, Facebook site or YouTube or whatever, wherever you would need it for. I think I mentioned publishing here. So once you want to publish the video, the project, you click here, slide this toggle. And with that, I think we covered everything.